All right, we were here talking about burning garbage and producing electricity from it, which is obviously a positive thing. But these are advantages and disadvantages to using incineration as a form of getting rid of solid waste. So what are some advantages? It limits the amount of trash. I guess less need for land, which is going to be a huge problem. This wave is going to eventually happen because we don't have the space to keep piling up garbage. So eventually the shift from 55 to possibly 30% going there, I mean, it's going to happen. And what else is a really big advantage to burning trash? You can make electricity from it. Okay, you can produce heat, which you can add water and then produce steam, spin a turbine, send electric current, blah, blah, blah. The same as always. What are some disadvantages? You're going to have a lot of pollution, air pollution in general, and you're going to have methane, carbon dioxide. You're going to have, that should say methane because that is carbon dioxide. So change this to say methane, so you could reference garbage and methane. And those are both greenhouse gases, which we know is a global problem. What else? It's more expensive to burn garbage than it is to put in the landfill, mainly because of the process to make sure that this is minimized, air pollution. Okay, so that's what gets expensive. What else? Why do you think we have the biggest problem with having a landfill versus burning garbage? People don't like it. You don't want to have an incinerator in the back of your house versus people will live near a landfill because they know it's sanitary. This has a lot of negative, like it's up for vote all the time and it fails, even here in Pembroke Pines. And what's the last one? Look at the pictures. We've got a guy winning and he's burning garbage versus what? What? Recycling. There's a lot of competition with recycling because recycling should be the actual choice, but it's not. So keep that in mind. Even though we recycle more than we incinerate, think of that too. So the original, recycling happens in two ways. So we talked about landfills, we talked about incinerators, now we're talking about recycling. There's two ways to recycle. One is called primary, and the other one should be open, by the way. What's the difference? So what's primary? You're going to take an aluminum can or any object, a glass jar, and make a glass jar. Aluminum can, make an aluminum can. What's secondary loop? You're going to take the original product and convert it into a different product. So you could take down an aluminum shed and then use that aluminum to make other forms of aluminum products. And I just use aluminum as an example. Now, there are definitely advantages to recycling, and always try to compare them to the other. There's a picture of energy here. You could just take it off. So what are some advantages to recycling? What do we save? Resources in general. We're going to avoid having to mine. And if you avoid having to mine, what's that going to do to the environment? It's not going to hurt it as much. So you're preserving or saving what? Land. And when you save land, what else do you preserve and save? Species or diversity. Good. And then you're also avoiding pollution in general, or you're saving it because it's the easiest. There's so much pollution involved, from mining to destruction of land. So think of all that. And then there's obviously disadvantages such as what? No, take that off. Yeah. It's expensive. Recycling's biggest holdback was how much it costs to do it. This was part of the problem of why it was so expensive, which was what? Correct. Is that still a problem? It technically depends on where you live. So in our city, if you live in Pembroke Pines, you don't have to sort. They designed a plant that sorts it for you. They literally have invited us over there to look at it. Just something to throw in here. One of the best forms of recycling involves composting. Basically, you're taking food products, and there's a list of what can be composted if you ever want to look into it. All you're doing is creating this nutrient-rich soil, which will allow you to grow the crops again. So it's the perfect form of recycling, and they call it one of the principles of sustainable living, okay, which is composting. It's the ideal form of recycling. Major advantages, no disadvantages, other than a little bit of maybe air pollution, but because you're basically recycling matter to grow crops, which is a deficiency, is excellent form of recycling. All right, the last section of this slide is dealing with hazardous waste. When you see that word, I want you to keep in mind that there are hazardous waste in your home. Who can name one? Batteries, good. What else? Well, I mean that you produce. So radon is naturally occurring, and it's definitely a gas that's harmful, but waste is what we produce. And when we're talking about hazards, it's not just solids. It's solids, liquids, and gas. Good. That is totally the same exact point they gave last class. If you have any medical issues, there could be medical waste in your home. Cleaning products usually are considered hazards, okay? So all of these things can be produced in your home, but the industry, other than normal trash of day-to-day office stuff, produces only hazardous waste. So all the waste produced in an industry is considered hazardous. And it has to be dealt with a little bit differently, which is what we're gonna talk about. If you are hazardous waste, you're gonna fall under any of these 4 categories. So if you see these words in any product, that means it requires a different form of disposal than what you do at your home. So what are they? Toxic. What does that mean? What is something toxic? You get sick if you ingest or inhale. So also inhale. You can get sick from both of those. What else is considered a hazardous waste? Flammable, which means what? It can catch on fire or ignite. What else? Explosive or reactive, which may explode. And the last one? I'll give you a key word. Acid. Nope. Corrosive. Good. It can eat away or eat through. Some simple products in your home can be somewhat corrosive. That doesn't mean it's going to completely disintegrate your skin, but it can affect, like, it could, you know, burn through a little bit or eat away at not just you, but other materials. Anything that you read the back of a jar and it has any of these words in it are considered hazards, and they're supposed to be disposed of differently. This is how the industry deals with it. And these are just some examples, like you mentioned. We know medical waste has its own form of disposal. We talked about nuclear waste. Here's one we haven't talked about in industry. And what's this? Electronic waste. Huge, big bulk of waste that comes from the industry. Who produces the most? Us, the United States of America. We actually produce half of the world's electronic waste. What do we do with it? Like who? Like China. 70% of it is given away to another country. Only a minimal percent actually gets reused or recycled in some sort. China will then, I guess, do what they do and make products, right? Because everything. You have to like take it from the factory, transport it, and then it's either going to be recycled, you know, that minimal percent, or it's going to be treated, and it's also going to be disposed of. So it could be in any of these orders or a combination of. You do not have to know these diagrams for the test. Okay, I just wanted to put that there, nor this one. If we're going to treat hazards, so we're going to do something to the hazardous waste before we dispose of it, what can we do to it to minimize its harm effect on you or the environment? Good. We can chemically treat it. What else? Good. Which is this one. What else? How do we always treat things? Universal solvent. Water. We're going to treat it physically, or what's another way to treat things so that they break apart? We got chemically. How else can we treat something to break it up? Burn it. Thermal, okay? So you're going to chemically treat it, add heat. You might add organisms to break it down or allow some kind of rapid decomposition, and then treat it physically, like cleaning it, things of that nature. Once you treat it, you could store it. Sometimes they don't treat it. Treating it is the best, and you should add that. Treating it is the best solution or first most important thing you could do to hazards is treat them. Then you could put them into storage containers, and that's just a picture of storage containers. And then they go here. What's here? Good. Except they're called hazardous landfills. So the only difference is instead of on dumping day where they form those cells of garbage, they actually put the drums in there. So as a review, remember that you're going to put that silt or sand or clay first. Then you're going to do that plastic liner. Then you have leachate collectors to collect any trickling, and they have them. Even though you have drums here, if a hazard is corrosive and it corrodes through the drum, it can leak, and then it leaches into the water supply. So it's very, very dangerous. That's why they like to treat it first. Another thing they do, so this is the last form of treatment, or not treatment, disposing of hazardous waste. What do we call this? I mean, what do you think this is? Looking at the diagram. We're going under what? Under what? What are we trying to avoid? Aquifers. So we're going deep below aquifers to avoid any kind of leaching into our drinking water. And as crazy and as dangerous as this sounds, it's highly protected by 2 acts, which you have to be familiar with. This Safe Drinking Water Act, self-explanatory, right? What do you think that act promotes? Clean water. Clean water to do what? Drink it. So that would come from your utility. So public drinking water is safe and clean to drink. It's healthy. This one, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, which is also known as RCRA, the name has nothing to do with the act. But because it's in this unit, what do you think it has to do with? It regulates what? What are we dealing with here? Hazards. It regulates how we dump of or dispose of any hazardous or non-hazardous solid waste. And that's what regulates the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Remember I told you we're going to be covering acts? This is one of them where the name doesn't match the act and you have to know it. Okay, so make sure you learn this one.